Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Aviation Barbecue. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favourite subjects and favourite subjects of Rich Cooper, who's joining me, and that's the F-117 Nighthawk. Yesterday there was a quite remarkable sighting of two F-117s over Los Angeles in California, and it's just the latest in a series of sightings of an aeroplane that was officially retired 12 years ago. Rich, thanks for joining me. How are you today?
Yeah, good, thanks. Really good, thank you.
Last night was amazing because I was online and there was a succession of social media posts of people going, "There's F-117s flying over Los Angeles." It's just amazing, isn't it?
It is. It's so exciting. I mean, the buzz, but what's also so cool is the amount of technology involved there. So you're getting this in real time coming into your home in leafy Surrey, that these stealth fighters are flying over the deserts of California. It's just, love it.
Amazing. I'm just going to put a bit of context on it. So, officially retired in 2008 when they were based
Yeah,
at Holloman. The F-117s were, being parked up. They were gone. 2 years later, in 2010, a video appeared on YouTube which reported it was taken somewhere on the Nellis Ranges, on the outskirts of the Nellis Ranges. Queen Summit or something was mentioned at the time, and there was a shot of a lone F-117. And then subsequently there were a number of sightings. So just to go back a bit, when the jets were retired, they went to Tonopah, which is where they were originally based, and
that's
put
right.
into storage into like Type 1000 storage, which meant they
Yeah,
could be reactivated.
storage, isn't it? That's right. Yeah, yeah.
And ever since, there's been just a series of sightings of them flying from Tonopah, and that culminated really last February with an amazing low-level sighting.
Yeah, that was quite something, wasn't it? Those guys, went out into the desert basin and were just in the right place at the right time, heard it on the frequency. I mean, how they got those shots, I'll never know, because I would not have been able to hold a camera still. I would have been just too excited for that.
But it was great. In fact, in February last year, just after that happened, I went out and met the guys that did it, Richard van der Meulen and Dan Sijovic, and we put a video out on the Combat Aircraft YouTube page. And that video, I mean, it's gone bananas actually. But it was literally days after it happened. I think they were still shaking about it. And for Dan, I mean, the amazing story was that Dan was at Nellis when they first came in. When
Yeah.
they were first revealed, they were still at Tonopah, still top secret. Two jets were coming into a Nellis show, and he saw them in public for the first time. And then all those years later, jet officially retired. February 2019. They're flying up and down in Panamint Valley at low level. I mean, that's amazing. It really was quite an amazing thing.
And it's the mystery surrounding what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they're doing it, who's flying them, who's supporting them, what squadron it is, what wing it's part of, everything. It's just all utterly fascinating.
So they're back at where they were originally based at Tonopah, and I heard a rumor that they actually are flying out the squadron, whatever it is, maybe called the Black Knights or whatever, because there's a
Mhm.
tail flash that was seen on one of the jets with Black Knights on it.
Yeah.
There's a rumor that they're flying out of the original buildings that the 4450th tactical group used back in the 80s. So that's the rumor. But
Just,
I mean, I just wanted to talk briefly about your relationship with the F-117, because I mean, we're both very fond of this aeroplane. And I
yeah.
was lucky enough to.
Back to those early deployments over to Holland, doesn't it? And when they were, coming over for the exercise out of Gilserion and the appearances at shows, at Mildenhall shows, and just the watching them come over from the States, listening to the airband receiver, getting them on, picking them up early, and then descending into UK airspace, and it's just So I mean, that's early '90s stuff, isn't it? So long affiliation.
Yeah, so I went to Holland in 2003 and was lucky enough to fly a photo sortie in '03. I was in a T-38, flew with a pair of F-117s and an F-4F from the 20th Fighter Squadron Silver Lobos and another T-38. Excuse me. But then, of course, you went back. You were there a lot for the end of the F-117, weren't you? Can you just tell me a bit
Yeah.
about what you did? Because that was pretty incredible.
It was amazing. So it started when they celebrated their Silver Stealth occasion, which is 25 years. So they launched a 25 ship over the desert. So I went out to cover that because I was obviously editor of Combat Aircraft back then and Aircraft Illustrated and all that. So I was there in that capacity. But what struck me was how how you get communities within specific aircraft types that are just magic. They're just so cool. And these guys, because of the type of mission they were flying, obviously quite high ranking. So you had kind of like everyone was sort of like a major or above. So they were able to make decisions on the spot, which really helped in terms of like media access and stuff. It's quite obvious. And that then coupled with a really helpful and proactive public affairs department just made some real magic happen. So I quickly, built up some pretty strong relationships in there. I mean, I even remember walking in to talk about the sortie that this was taken on. I had to get approval, obviously, from the Wing Command, and that's Goldfein. You know what I mean? I was sitting there having a
General Goldfein, the current Chief of Staff of the US Air Force.
I mean, that's the kind of level that it was at. It was just an amazing time. So yeah, I went over for the Silver Stealth, and the outstanding memories of that were those the preparation to launch 25 aircraft or 30 aircraft with the spares, and having them all taxi towards me on the EOR, and that was just incredible time. And then so from those relationships that you build up, then I went out with them on a lot of red flagged missions and stuff, and my standout mission was that we wanted to portray these aircraft on doing their thing. Well, obviously they do it normally in complete darkness. So we had to rearrange an entire flag sortie to be launched earlier with tankers so that we could get some sunset shots. I mean, that was just, I mean, that just doesn't happen.
You won't do that now.
No, can you imagine?
Was that just the 117s that launched early in the VUL, the red flag VUL?
Yeah. So they launched early with their tanker. And we went and did the photographs, and they fitted into their slot later on in the flag mission. So, and then obviously they came over to the UK for their last appearances in Europe and stuff. So I remember sitting around at Fairford having beers with these guys. It was just awesome, magic stuff, great stories. And then literally just before they finished, I was very privileged to undertake the last ever air-to-air sorties with them. So this was like 3 weeks before they flew out to Palmdale. And then on to Tonopah, obviously, after that for storage. So, yeah, it was a very special time, and absolutely one of the highlights of my career.
So you flew a dusk photo shoot. You're in a T-38 with 4 ship of F-117s?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I know some shots behind. I mean, they're just great shots. And so it was literally, I mean, what was it like being there as they're winding down? I mean, was there any talk of, there's something else replacing these we don't know, or was it kind of, no, Raptor is replacing the F-117?
100%. There was no whisper of any of this at all, and that's quite interesting looking back at it now as well, because I'd love to talk to some of the guys that I flew with and was quite close to. Obviously, you lose contact quite easily over 10 plus years. So I'd love to know if they had any inkling that this would be happening at all. Every indication I've got is that there was no inkling this was going to happen whatsoever. I saw all of the withdrawal boards and the timeline, and in their briefing room was an entire wall of calendar dates, like a wall calendar. And in every part of that, there was this jet being retired, this jet being retired, this jet being deserviced.
They really spoofed you with that wall board, didn't they? They probably did it especially, like, we're going to pretend they're going away.
Yeah, that's right. One of my favourite parts of that, just from a personal point of view, was that my name was on there as well. It's like Fly Rich Cooper, and then a couple of weeks later, retire F-117. It's just magic.
So the majority of them went to Tonopah to be stored, I think, with the wings off, stuffed in their original kind of barn hangars, those rows of hangars, able to be returned to service if need be, in flyable storage. And a 4-ship went, that last official flight, a 4-ship went to Palmdale, obviously, which is where the Skunk Works is now. Obviously, when the 117s were built there, Skunk Works was at Burbank, but it had moved to Palmdale. And so they went there, they stopped off there, and then those 4 jets went to Tonopah, and that was it.
That was it, apparently. Yeah. It's been now some more aircraft to kind of been prepared for museums and stuff. I don't know if you caught some of that. There's been actually some aircraft placed into museums or on poles outside museums as well. And they've slowly announced this withdrawal plan, which for me, when that was announced, a month or so, maybe 2 months ago, time flies, it's weird at the moment, but when that was announced that they actually had their final days mapped out, I was like, okay, well, that's it. We're never going to see these things again. And then, boom, yesterday and this week, just there they are again.
To be fair, I get the impression, I don't know, and I've asked the official question and I've not had an answer. The official answer is they're in flyable storage from the US Air Force. I think there's probably just a handful of these jets that are flying. It doesn't seem to me that they're rotating through the force. They seem to have a handful of them, and I think, from what we could tell, one of the jets that was seen in February last year was one of those last 4 that went through Palmdale.
One of those scrubbed out on the tail, couldn't you? Is that right?
It have been scrubbed out, but you could see the serial on it.
Just about make it out,
So the impression I get, so they're operating from Tonopah out of the original building, maybe that they flew out of before. There's probably a handful of guys that are qualified on this, and I'll put a clip of the film from last year in a minute so we can have a look at that. But you know, they were flying low level last year doing a trial. That was the first sign, I think, that okay, there's some sort of test or aggressor work going on here, because there were a pair of F-16s that had IRST pods on them, and the F-16s were sitting high, trying to look at the F-117s. And I've heard the audio, and the F-16 guys, they're from the test unit down in Arizona.
Yeah.
They talk to each other, and he goes, "Hey, is that F-117?" And they go,
so they didn't even know.
They didn't know. So obviously they're using our RST to go and track a low-level stealthy target, you know. And you could say, well, why wouldn't you use a Raptor or an F-35 for that? Well, they're pretty busy at the moment, and you know, I don't know what it's going to cost to keep a small fleet of F-117s going, but I mean, the 117 was early stealth, but it was a very low observable aeroplane. There's no two ways about it. So
definitely.
we got the idea that they were doing some test work. And then they showed up a couple more times last year, didn't they? Up higher, not low level. I mean, that was only over the course of 2 days, the low level stuff.
Yes.
And then there was a tanker shot last year. And then this week, on Monday, they picked up going down to going off San Diego, off in the Pacific area, seemingly working with the COMPTUX for USS Nimitz with Air Wing 17.
That was initially just picked up on radio chat, though, wasn't it? There was no photographs at that stage, because it was overcast, right, that day, wasn't it?
Exactly right. So yeah, it was the Ghost tanker, which is the test KC-135R out of Edwards.
That's up.
White one, yeah, the Ghost tanker. He came down and he had Night 1 and 2 with him, and everyone was like, "Well, we know what they are."
Yeah.
But no photos. And then yesterday lunchtime, yesterday morning, they flew. That's Wednesday. They flew a second mission, but it was clear. They went down, did the mission. On the way back, they flew over Long Beach. They flew over central LA, up over Palm. I mean, up at 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
So in trail with the tanker, high level, going back to Tonopah as the tanker dragged them back to Tonopah. I think they may have actually. I think the Edwards tanker then went into Edwards and they carried on. There was another tanker waiting for them up in the Nevada test and training range.
The radio talks about that the weather was bad even at Tonopah, and they were looking to divert to Edwards.
That was Monday.
That was Monday's one. Okay.
That was Monday. The winds were up and they talked about diverting to Edwards. Yesterday the weather was great, and so seemingly if they're doing this kind of thing, I mean, they're going a lot. To start with, they didn't roam very far from Tonopah. No, in terms of the reactivation, if we can call it that.
Yeah, it was all very much local over the Nellis Ranges, wasn't it? But this is, I presume, the first time that they've gone outside to support an external exercise, perhaps.
Don't know. But you know, this is a big upscaling of, you know, to go down to sort of towards Baja California, off the coast for a long period of time, presumably supporting this workup, presumably presenting low observable targets to the battle group, be it airborne or shipborne radars, something like that, just taxing them, just trying to get into the battle space, to try and get into the battle group and presenting those targets, those LO targets, and then heading back home. I mean, if nothing else, what a great story. You know, I mean,
I'd love to add something about that. That would be the ultimate for pretty much all of us now, right now, wouldn't it? Just to know what they're doing and how they're doing it, and to complete that whole story of this incredible aeroplane.
Yeah, I think it would be lovely if we hear about it. Hopefully it will carry on, you know, because these kind of sightings are actually a bit special. And, you know, and not knowing makes it a little bit more special. I think it would be great to know a little bit more about it. I've got to say, it would be great to be able to visit Tonopah and actually see it. I mean, could you imagine inside? I mean, we had a magazine. I remember when they revealed the 117, there was a Lockheed Martin magazine, Horizons magazine, with some amazing shots inside Tonopah.
I mean, out of the canyons, and they had the fingerprint thing as well, didn't they? They showed you how the pilots got into the hangars, and just caught the imagination. That was again early 90s, you know. So
that was 80s, and 80s. That was 80s. I mean, don't forget they went to Desert Storm in 91, and they were already revealed by then. So anyway, it's a great story. The May 2019 issue of Combat Aircraft talks all about the February sightings from last year, and that is available in digital format, so you can read all about that. I said I'll put a link up to the the video that we made last year. But let's hope this story carries on because it's so good. We don't know what they're doing. That's kind of nice about the mystique of the whole thing, isn't it?
It is, and that's the continuation of the Mystique. That is absolutely it, because these aren't new build jets. They're not like upgraded versions or anything else. These are the exact aeroplanes that were classified back in those 1980 mysterious years, and it's still creating that mystery now. Amazing.
Let's hope it carries on, and we can talk about more sightings in times to come. Thanks for joining me. We'll speak soon.
Cheers.